I know we have the other houses that relate, but to me, the 12th is what's behind them, past life, behind us, past life. It's important that I shake things up, and I shake things up vocally, and I shake things up by bringing up in this life hidden truth,
Yeah.
shine the light on the eighth house things of the truth, the hidden truth. What do you really feel? I felt today I had to push somebody to their hidden truth. There's surfaces like this, and people don't want to come from the bottom depths to
Yeah.
bring it out. And sometimes it takes an escort.
Hmm.
The other thing I wanted to say was that this escort, as a reflector, I get so much of my reflections back. Where do the healers go to heal? And some people may say they look to eldership, and eldership is wonderful.
Mhm.
But I think it's important to also think of the youth, the people that are coming up behind us, and how much we can learn from them. And so when I'm talking to the farm community, who's made up mostly of women that are young enough to be my daughters, I find, and in my daughters as well, my two, daughters that I gave birth to, my reflection, the way I like to use my reflector
Mhm.
abilities or who I am, composition, is by looking at you all as my mirrors.
Yeah.
And I gather so much information by how you all are progressing in life, tapping into the void, tapping into your bodies and the energy sources throughout your bodies, and learning your learning processes. All of that informs how I'm growing.
Hmm.
Let's see.
Welcome to the Intuitive Wellness Experiment, a sacred space for self-rebellion, intuitive remembrance, and embodied wisdom. This is a podcast for reclaiming your rhythm, trusting your intuition, and living in alignment while embodying cosmic self-sovereignty. I'm your host, Christine, aka the Cosmic Doula, guiding you through soulful conversations with changemakers and solo reflections rooted in intuitive wellness. In this season, we're gathering tools for the revolution, tools anchored in self-sovereignty, spiritual empowerment, and collective liberation. Whether you're tuning in during a personal season of creative fire or a sacred pause, may this space support you in coming home to your own rhythm, your radiance, and the power of your gifts. Take a breath, feel your body, and tune in. Hello, everybody. I am so excited for today's episode. We got my mentor here, the Chironista herself here, and I am just beyond excited. I'll just first give a brief introduction of this living legend, and then we will get into it. I would love for you to introduce yourself too, but we have Kateria, aka Kat, aka the Hungry Medium, with us. She is an accomplished spiritual activist, a vessel for transformation, soul searching, and healing and enlightenment. By sharing her remarkable gifts, Hearing Spirit, Kat has played a pivotal role in empowering hundreds of clients, mainly Black women, with guidance to find clarity, focus, and direction in their day-to-day lives. Born New Yorker, bloodline enriched with Gullah Geechee bright birthrights, Kat now resides in Charleston, South Carolina, a native home for her mother and matriarchal ancestors. A passion-driven mission to return home to her roots while creating a haven for Black women to rest, rejuvenate, and heal, inspired by the funded Militant Cook Farms. When she's not engaging with her growing audience of more than 10,000 followers on Instagram as a little micro influencer, macro influencer, if you ask me, you can find Kat spending her precious time with her family on James Island, Mount Pleasant, or visiting local eateries and farms. That's just a little bit about you, but I would love for you to introduce yourself to our podcast, our tiny community podcast. And if you feel called and you would like to share some of your cosmic big threes or big
Sure.
one, I would love that too. So
I'll even throw in four. I'll even throw in
Let's go.
four.
However you feel you would like to
All
share
right.
back to the community.
Okay. Hi. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Kat Niambi. As the beautiful cosmic doula, Zen wellness, and all her beauty, my guardian and mentee has told you. I'm a spiritual activist. What that is someone who is here to
Mm,
activate the spiritual warriors amongst us. We have a lot of people who are with their picket signs and advocates in the media, but we also need activists in the spiritual realm. And so my goal, oh, clock it.
mm,
My goal is to activate people, whether they are in a dormant stage or in the stage of enlightenment growth. I'm here to help guide them. And the way that I do that is by my journey and my growth
yeah.
as a human in this world. And hopefully, through my contact with spirit in all forms, messengers of God, I can help activate the originators, the divine feminine,
Yes.
Black and Indigenous women and femmes
Yeah.
throughout the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. If you'd like to share some of your
My cosmic big threes, Gemini in the eighth house,
okay.
Scorpio rising, Scorpio moon, and in human design, Reflector.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And you spoke to, oh, there's just so much depth in what you shared. Not surprising with your Gemini sun in the eighth house and all that Plutonian energy with Scorpio as your moon and rising. We were just pulling cards before just to ground us in the moment. And there was a lot of Plutonian energy there. And I think it's just so beautiful. And the beautiful thing about that is you have a very Gemini way of expressing that Plutonian energy. You know, it's like we're going to be talking, but like a very lighthearted, fun, charismatic. But at the end of the day, we get into the depth of what the situation is and what the situation is because I can't help but it because I am a Scorpio moon and rising. You know what I mean? And that reflection that you give us through your human design is just so impactful to those spiritual activists because I think a lot of those spiritual activists exude some of that Plutonian energy, right? Because they're going into the depth of what it is, like what we're feeling, that sacred rage that bubbles, within you. And and what is that sacred rage? We were talking about Vesta and that spiritual devotion, that hearth, like all of that is really, it's like I need to fight for that. I need to fight for that. And that's what you reflect to us through your example of being who you are that this is part of the revolution, right? Being
Yeah.
spiritual activist and a lot of us, I'm a spiritual activist, need guidance and mentorship, like you. So thank you so much for that reflection and sharing your big threes with us. Just to ground us in the cosmic moment of right now, just to kind of pre-warm y'all. So we're the two Geminis, right? Talking. This might be a part two, depending on how long this episode is, but we are flowing. We
Yeah.
are letting spirit guide this conversation. Part of my journey and through your reflections of my kind of spiritual business. And, we started with the entrepreneurship, read the room mentorship, was to tell me to let my intuition lead and not think so much with my mind and the perfectionism and the lists of it all, but let spirit lead. And I've been doing that. And this is even why I have this podcast to heal my Gemini wound of speaking up and letting spirit lead with my North Node in Pisces. And so we're letting spirit lead. We're not putting a time limit. We're under right now as we speak the Gemini moon, which is all about communication, and Gemini is always going from one topic to the next. So
Yes.
respect that.
Hope they can keep up. Hope they can keep up.
Keep up.
Keep up,
Up,
y'all.
y'all. Take it in bits and pieces. You can always stop. You can
Yes.
always
Pause.
fast forward. You can always slow down the speed. Take it how you need to. It'll be here.
Slow down.
I just want to get to know you. And then we are also on a third quarter moon phase, which
Mm.
I think is very interesting because the third quarter moon, it's like we're getting prepped for the new moon, right? And I'm so excited about this new moon. It's in Virgo.
Mm.
Um, but the third quarter moon is all about letting go of the things, because something came up during the full moon that showed us, like, okay, this is what it is. Are you still on path? Now we're at the third quarter. It's like you need to release in order to step forward. You need
Mm.
to let go in order to move forward. And so it's, like the closing phase of the lunar cycle. It's all about reflection and understanding. So we're grounding into that. We're reflecting and we're
Mm.
understanding of how we can move forward in this
Yeah.
revolution. And this season is all about tools for the revolution.
Yeah.
So, in your community, I would love for you to share of what stood out to you about tools for the revolution, how it came upon the farm is what you call your community, like we would like to call the Flower Child community. And also, what do you reflect back on the impact that you had on the Flower
Mm.
Childs?
Mhm.
And thinking back on that Tools of Revolution time, because we started January 31st, the
Mhm.
beginning of the years. I'll just share a little bit about the topics to kind of
Mhm.
spark your memory. We
Girl,
had
look, I'm getting my notebook because you know how it is, and I have so many things to say. So I'm gonna
excited. We
I'm
are going
gonna
to talk because this is
grab
season
my notebook.
inspired by the tools for the revolution. And woo! What we did on the farm was tools for the revolution, starting this new year, this 9 year cycle. We just talked
Mm.
about the third quarter phase and releasing in order to move forward. This is what the 9 year is all about. Shedding those cycles, in order to move forward. So in January, we were getting ready. We were getting fired up. We were kind of clocking our tools. So we started with hoodoo for
Yeah.
the uninitiated, with Yayi, GTFOH, get the fuck out of here, Empath Life with Global Black Girl,
Mm.
Entrepreneurship with Ada. We talked about art and numerology with Sauce God, human design with me, astrology with Pam, and so much in between. So when you look back on those tools of the revolution conversations, what stood out to you and what do you feel is the impact that it had on the flower childs in the community?
Well, the first thing I want to talk about and prep your viewers about is my memory. Because we talk about that a lot.
We
And
do.
I think this is going to help in the conversation around release.
Mm,
And I think if you could bring me back to that when I finished talking about a couple of things I had to write down because it's you said you wanted to talk about tools of revolution. I was like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that. What did we do?
please.
I totally forgot about all these talks you just mentioned. But before we even get to that, I want to take us back to the opening when you spoke about Pluto
Yeah.
and Pluto being my chart ruler.
Mhm.
We're in the age of Aquarius where Pluto
Mhm.
is hovering between Aquarius and Capricorn, and we see it in the world is back and forth between the patriarchy and technology and freedom. Um, but what I like to think about Pluto is, especially because I have Mars, so my chart rule is actually Mars and Pluto. But since I have Mars in Libra in the 12th house, I think it's important for me to mention the fact that I see myself as a disruptor. And that to finally come to that conclusion is a road that would take quite a few podcasts to walk us through.
Yeah.
But just know that that's where I am today, knowing that this spiritual activism is really about the disruption. So sometimes, you have a beaker of solution that is sitting there. And what do they do to get that solution activated? They shake it.
Mm.
And that causes a disruption, right? And it's a catalyst. And it's so funny. One of my former names, Geminis, we have 50 names. You know that Zen wellness,
Cosmic siren.
the cosmic doula. And people just have to keep up with that.
Come on now.
Because that's a symbol of disruption and that's a symbol of change, right? So Pluto, I see it as, and it's Mars and Libra, action around justice, action around balance in a house of the ancestors.
Mm.
I know we have the other houses that relate, but to me, the 12th is what's behind them, past life, behind us, past life. It's important that I shake things up, and I shake things up vocally, and I shake things up by bringing up in this life hidden truths,
Yeah.
shining the light on the eighth house things of the truth, the hidden truth. What do you really feel? I felt today I had to push somebody to their hidden truth. There's surfaces like this, and people don't want to come from the bottom depths to
Yeah.
bring it out. And sometimes it takes an escort.
Mm.
The other thing I wanted to say was that this escort, as a reflector, I get so much of my reflections back. Where do the healers go to heal? And some people may say they look to eldership, and eldership is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's important to also think of the youth, the people that are coming up behind us, and how much we can learn from them. And so when I'm talking to the farm community, who is made up mostly of women that are young enough to be my daughters, I find, and in my daughters as well, my two, daughters that I gave birth to, my reflection, the way I like to use my reflector
Mm-hmm.
abilities or who I am, composition, is by looking at you all as my mirrors.
Yeah.
And I gather so much information by how you all are progressing in life, tapping into the void, tapping into your bodies and the energy sources throughout your bodies, and learning your learning processes. All of that informs how I'm growing.
Mm.
Let's see. The other thing you asked about, you were talking about, was the release. My memory, I can come up with a bunch of excuses as to why my memory is the way it is. And we could talk about the Neptune in the
Mm-hmm.
first house and Scorpio as well. But imagine if my body was able to retain all of this work that's being
Oh,
done.
that's the truth. Oh, yeah, that's a great reflection.
And I think there's a natural release of the information and the things that I have done because it would be, the word I like to use, overwhelming.
Yes.
I think from a spiritual, it's not, you brought it back, I remember. But if I
Right.
had to hold all the milestones, all the activities, all the
Mhm.
things, what I garner from everything is looking at what all of those things have done.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I was listening, I was like, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that has contributed. When I was talking to Chelsea Von Ches, she was talking about her biggest impact on the farm was talking to Dr. Ayoka when the conversation with me and Dr. Ayoka Wiles. I was like, really? The That's amazing. So I want to give you guys credit for being the keepers, being the literal manifestations
Mm.
of the information that I was able to
Mhm.
curate,
Yeah.
and the tools of the revolution. Sounds like it was a great idea. And I'm so glad that it impacted so many. And I want to talk about the pieces
Yeah.
based on your recollection. And then I will definitely chime in.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you so much for that reflection too. And shout out to my reflectors out there because I think that is a very good point to know. And I'm blessed to have a lot of reflectors in my life. And they've also shared with me, as well as a daughter who is very empathic and has that very strong Neptune in her chart as well. That memory, and as a parent or as somebody, a partner or somebody out looking in, can be like, why don't you remember? Like, it can get frustrating, but yes, you retain so much information. Imagine it would be system overload if you couldn't remember each and everything. But having the grace, having the understanding as a partner to remind them with grace and understanding as a partner or as a parent or somebody who is parenting a child or has a close friend or in partnership with
Or as
somebody.
daughters,
I'm sorry.
daughters,
Or daughters who have
or
mothers.
children.
It's good to know. So thank you for that point. Yeah, I'm very grateful for that reminder. But yeah, y'all, I don't even remember how this came about. It was so we started in January, so it had to be like towards the end of last year. And I'm a nine life path as well. So nine rules, my life, the shedding, this constantly releasing, letting go, endings, but also it's the last number, so it's very wise and it takes in all that knowledge. And so I was just coming out of my 9 year, and the collective was getting ready for their 9 year. And so I feel like it was like in between that, transition where spirit was like tools of the revolution. Like there has to be something like with human design or something that shows like this, like knowing yourself, knowing who you are tools that we
Mhm.
need to use in this current revolution that we are
Mhm.
living right now. The knowledge of self, the love of self, and what you could provide for the collective is how we are going to come to the other side.
Mhm.
And so I shared this, and you were like, this is let's try it on the farm. And then we tried it on the farm, and so many great speakers just started showing up in the collective. There were so many like voices that were being heard, information that was being shared. And yeah, it was just super powerful. When you talk about the spiritual activism, this was it. This was like the groundwork, the soil that was being poured into this farm,
Yes.
this
And I want to
revolution.
tell you something else. This is a perfect example of how being a reflector, but also I don't know what it is in my chart. I'm sure at some point somebody will point it out for me. Is this idea of integrity,
Mm,
especially in the form of leadership. Christine was being you were being very diplomatic about how you explained how that happened. But I'm going to tell you
Agreed.
what I do remember is that we were all just chit chat like we do, and we may have even been in a room at the time in our community. And you mentioned the term
Mm.
tools of the revolution or tools for the revolution. And me being me, and I was like, that's what we're doing. I was like, oh, yes, we're going to do it. We're going to call it Tools of Revolution. And Christine was like, quiet, quiet in the corner, quiet. And I was like, I wonder if Christine is okay with us naming it this. Is this okay? I don't know. We're gonna go with it. We're gonna go with it. And then later down the line, you got yourself together, you gathered yourself, and you said, well, I was working on this idea, tools of revolution, and what did I say?
You said this is a place to workshop it.
I said, this is your idea.
Mm-hmm.
And don't let anyone
You
take
did.
your
You did.
ideas.
Yeah, you did.
See, I remember that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That was a powerful moment for me. That was a powerful moment for me because yeah, I felt like it was just such a like it's like this idea could go so many different ways, right? And I know you and I know the impact that it has. So I was just like, yeah, just go with this. She's reflecting something. This needs to happen. But as we were getting deeper and deeper, I think we were like mid through the series. And I remember it was the Cancer full moon or something. And then I was like, and Cancer in my
Your
chart.
feelings?
Hmm?
In your feelings?
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. I was in my feelings. I was like, I need to say something, because,
Yes.
in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is my idea, you know,
And
and
that's the Chiron.
in Gemini.
But go ahead.
Yep, that's the Chiron and Gemini. So Cancer rules my 11th house. So I was in my feeling about my ideas, the hopes and wishes that I had for Tools of the Revolution within and how I wanted to share it with the community. Like I loved what was going on, but at the same time, but I'm like, my Chiron and Gemini, you can't say anything, maybe it wasn't your idea, or maybe, like I was telling myself so many different things, but I mustered up the courage and I said something, and you said, don't let anybody ever, ever, ever take your idea. And I was like, oh, wow,
Because
wow.
especially somebody like me. Because the thing is, I'll take it and run, honey. I'll take it and run. And ideas are free.
Yeah,
But this
yeah,
is this the thing is, I'm going to have more ideas and more ideas and more ideas. And we were laughing about, well, just now you're telling me all these things that came out of it. I'm like, oh, I forgot all about that. But this is imagine you birth a baby
hmm. That's true. Wow.
and I take your baby
Yeah,
from you
yeah.
and I'm clothing your baby, I'm teaching your
Mhm.
baby, I'm doing all this to your baby, and then I leave your baby on the side of the road.
Yeah. But you did it. Like the baby, oh my gosh, can we get back to the impact that the baby had?
Let's talk about it.
Because I feel like that was part of the journey, part of this Tools of the Revolution, because the baby needed to be with you at the end of the day. And that's what we talked about. The farm is a place to workshop your ideas in this community. And so I was able to release on that full moon and let the baby do what it needs to do because I was in the understanding like, yes, the baby needed to be with you. Now the baby, once it's returned back to me, look at now what's happening, you know? Like there's so much depth and information that I can take back now in this conversation that in this segment that I was thinking when I first conceived this baby for the Tools for the Revolution. So reflecting back on when you had the baby, and some of the topics that we talked about, in the podcast, you talked about her most impactful moment of the Tools of the Revolution. What were some of yours? And again, what do you think the impact was? Besides me,
Yeah.
and what have you seen kind of grow out of that conversation?
Um, I want to talk about something in a minute, and then I will come back to that because I know you're going to bring it up.
Hmm.
But as they say in academic world, put this in the parking lot,
Parking lot, got you.
okay? Because if anybody knows Christine, there's a notions board going
I
on
gotta know
somewhere in the background. We even sing a song. Oh, I'd like to know that you got the notion.
it.
Yes. Okay. So I want to talk about that card you just pulled that speaks to being the midwife of what?
It was the midwife of, oh, Venus. Venus was the midwife of your, un momento, por favor.
Because that's what happened. That's what sounds like
Our happiness.
the
She,
midwife of happiness. And if
our
someone
guide.
has an idea,
Mm.
and really, if you're a new mother, we're taking this birth idea a little bit farther and then we'll come back.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you're a new mom, you never had a baby before, I'm happy to be that midwife and doula of your ideas,
Mhm.
your midwife and
Beautiful.
doula of your happiness. I will hold it, I will dress it, I will do everything, and I will leave it there. And then you can come and take it now. And because you are seeing how it can be, you're looking at the fruition of the baby. Now, baby over here. Do you want to reflect on that before we move to the specific programming? Okay,
No, no, no,
all right.
absolutely.
So I wanted
Oh,
to,
well, I will 1 second. Because I think in this card, this woman is not, she's birthing and she's an elder, she's a wise woman. So there is something that an elder, somebody who has a little bit more experience, can offer this new soul versus when it gets back. So that's the only thing that I want
the idea being the soul in
to.
this case,
Mhm.
the idea that spark happiness,
Yes. Mhm.
the idea that you birthed, you
Mhm.
visualized, you saw.
Mhm.
So this is a perfect time. I started microdosing yesterday
Mm.
again.
Mhm.
And even though it's a Gemini moon, it's about to be a Cancer moon. So I already feel the moons ahead of time.
The switch. You're feeling the
I
switch.
already feel it.
Lunar 30.
So I feel emotional, which is okay.
Absolutely.
I would in the past have been holding it down.
Mm.
And now I feel it and it feels so good to be able to
Mm.
express it in a forum that is accepting
Mhm.
and to an audience that looks to you for this kind of information. They're not looking to you to learn how to make a cake or something
Right.
like that.
Mhm.
They're coming here for this information. So I say to you
Mm.
for putting this together. Uh, I'd have to say it's so funny about who I brought together initially for this Tools of the Revolution. These are people who were pivotal in my life when I was going through the post-COVID
Mm.
transformation. I tell the story about Clubhouse,
Mhm.
and I will continue to say that was at the pinnacle. It was you talk about giving birth to ideas. It was literally like a planetary metaverse vortex of information and community. And in all those spaces out in whatever you want to call the real world, there's always going to be some kind of high vibration, low vibration. That's just how balance works. You need everything can't be high vibrating, or we would be speaking all different languages from different
Absolutely.
parts of the universe.
Mhm.
Um, what brought us together there was the pandemic,
Mhm.
pandorama, plandemic, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
And we came together and we formed virtual communities. And a lot of the people I had come speak within our farm environment came from there. Queen Poe, I think, as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make sure you tag her in this video.
I sure will. Queen Poe, shout out.
Queen Poe, I think, was one of the speakers too. I
Mhm.
met all of these people in Clubhouse. And we actually formed a community there for the African traditional religion, but that wasn't the only place I went.
Mhm.
I was everywhere
Mhm.
in that space. So that's where I got to meet Sauce God, who is
Mhm.
also a reflector.
Yes. Yes.
And that's where I learned from him. We would sit in these what people would call hotep rooms, which has been a word that has been, villainized
Yeah,
and degraded to
that's
a
so
point
true.
that's of ridiculousness.
Hmm.
But that's where I became open to numerology and human design
Yep.
and psychedelics, all through Source God.
I love it. Hmm.
And that's where I met B, who introduced me to Yayi.
Mm.
And I think there was one more. And I even had People's Oracle, Dana.
Oh, wow.
Didn't she come on and talk
Oh,
about
yeah, she came on into sidereal.
sidereal astrology? So
Yeah.
we had all these players. We had you talking about human design, all these people. And in a sense, you and I met through Clubhouse. And you say, how so? Because of Buku Hoodoo and all these other spaces that came out of that Clubhouse experience.
Mm.
There's a whole network of people that got to meet one another.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think out of all of them, if I had to pick, and the one with Yayi was powerful because that allowed me to stand 10 toes deep in my story about the exorcism that occurred to me in Mount Pleasant when I was 8 years old. Because I remember Yayi being one of the first people to acknowledge that this was a thing.
Yes, that was powerful.
And I was like, Yayi, Yayi, do you know about this? Do you know about this tarrying thing? Oh, yeah, I know about this. What? What? The first person. That was in Clubhouse. I think she acknowledged that. So I had to bring her on to bring all of these things kind of full circle, all the experiences I had had over the past previous, from 2020,
Hmm.
and to really top it off,
Hmm.
not because we talked about it in the Tools for the Revolution, but um, the global Black girl, Marina,
Yeah.
is really the person who told me about Chiron. I had never heard of this anything, the word, the anything in astrology, anything. And she said, oh, let me go check your Chiron. My what? And
Hmm.
from that moment on, so I'd have to say, bringing her back to speak full circle about our experiences and knowing each other. We've never met in person. Every single person I just mentioned never met in person.
Never. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
So there we go.
And that speaks to the power. And I think that speaks to the power of this Pluto and Aquarius place that we're in. You
Yeah.
know, the revolution that's going to happen in the digital spaces. We got Uranus and Gemini, coming in. Think about all this air energy. Is it air in the physical?
Mm,
I don't know. It's in these digital spaces that spark, 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 spark.
yeah.
The conversations. Do we necessarily need to? It's, oh my gosh, not discrediting. Like there is something powerful, okay, about being in person and exchanging energies, but there's
Absolutely.
always something powerful about digital spaces. So
Yeah.
being open to both of those. And again, if when we're talking about how we're transforming this new revolutionary stage, I feel like it speaks to that Aquarius,
Yeah. And
Uranus.
when you say that, I feel that the digital space has more power for me.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you why. Because I'm an empath, the
Yes, that's
physical is overwhelming just walking the streets. I
on
tell
that.
a story about my time in Savannah and how I was so out of sorts. I need to reevaluate. I was out of sorts because I felt nothing.
Hmm.
Um, shout out to Savannah. I felt nothing, but in the physical, it's harder, more difficult for me to manage
Hmm.
all the things. When I come back home, it's, you know, within my home, within this, we are literally dealing with frequency. This is how these things are transmitted. Radio frequency, Wi-Fi,
Hmm.
cellular is all frequency. And what we are literally doing right now, even in this moment, we're walking and floating through this conversation. Our words, the sounds are a part of a frequency,
Hmm.
far part of a So when you are literally in that, in the mechanism, I feel like the expansion. I got X amount of views on YouTube. I got how many? I wouldn't have speaking my truth in front of my house
Hmm.
on my stoop.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, that is the frequency I think in that we're entering in that we're already in. And so when you just talk about the metaverse, talk about how, we were all connected and necessarily not in person, I reflect about the mentorship, reading the Read the Room mentorship. I don't know if I met you. Yeah, I haven't seen you at this in person, probably at this time.
Oh,
But I was just so drawn to, like, I just felt and I knew, and I was familiar with human design at that time. So I would listen to my strategy and authority and everything it said, you need to connect with her. And when you had this mediumship, mentorship, or that you called Read the Room, I couldn't apply fast enough and quick enough. I knew that this is the type of mentor that I needed, and it transformed and it changed my life. I remember in person meeting you, and you talked about it was, I didn't, again, I don't know if I was too familiar with you, but, it was the session at Bukuhudu with Charlotte, and we were talking about psychedelics, and you shared how it helped your grief with your father.
my
And
mother.
that moment, like it was like literally my dad was like, "You see this right here?"
Oh.
And then from there on the breadcrumbs. And
Mm.
I was like, and it changed my life. It changed the way that I saw myself because again, the Chironista, we talk about this Chironista power and this is your key. So it's like my dad was literally giving me the breadcrumbs through that conversation of leading me to the Chironista that, was able for me to find that key to
Yeah.
unlock my gifts and my power and how I show up and read for other people, read for myself, just step into my spiritual activism. So you walk a powerful path as a medium, as a mentor and a guide. What was like, how did that come about? The mentorship and just knowing that this was
Um,
a calling.
I don't know.
No, no.
I'm
Or any
gonna
reflections on what I said. It doesn't have to be like.
right, exactly. But it'll be consistent, and that's what's important.
Mhm.
It's always told with a different way, a different flair.
Yeah.
And that's important. Not for us to understand that our stories can be told and still hold the truth. They can be told in different ways and still hold truth. Sometimes we evolve in the way that we see it. 4 years ago, I saw my journey differently. Last week, I saw my journey differently.
Mhm.
As new revelations come to you, new reflections come to
Yeah.
you, add layers upon layers, and you're able to tell your story in different ways. Um, when when I reflect on how I got here, I know that I got here because I was guided here by spirit
Yeah.
and not just my guides and protectors or my ancestors. They had a whole lot of help from the guides and protectors of other people in the world,
Mm.
especially elders within my spiritual community. And
Mhm.
I'm going to name him today. I normally don't name who I'm talking about, but I want to give honor to him.
Mhm.
He is a Leo,
Mhm.
um, and he is a priest of Aganju. His name is Bruce Spencer.
Mhm.
He is an older person, lives in New York City. Yes, Barbara Bruce, I'm putting you out there. You on, okay?
Happy
And
solar
he's ready to
return,
be,
Baba
he's
Bruce.
ready to be on, okay?
Mhm.
So, kind, gentle man.
Mhm.
And I have gone through this path of spirituality. This story I've told many, many, many times. People can This podcast needs to get us fast forwarded to the moment where I was already in the spiritual community that I had chosen after lots of grief from losing my mother and father, being grown up in the church, all the things, right?
Yep.
But there's a moment where I joined the community, and it's so funny. I joined the community that had been on the periphery all my life since the age of 6, because my best friend and her family were practicing. They were
Mhm.
being introduced to the tradition. So I'm going to church, but I also have this on the periphery. Eventually, I joined the tradition, and we sit these things called misas,
Mhm.
right? So of course I'm a medium. Of course I channel. Of course I grew up as a kid. I'm a Scorpio rising moon and
Mhm.
all the things. If you are not that by this point, check yourself before you wreck yourself.
So
Okay.
true. So true.
So now we get to the point where I'm sitting these spiritual gatherings that I've talked about before. Some of y'all know it as seances in the world out there. And this elder, he sits, you sit misas with different people, but I was sitting misas all the time.
Mm.
People were inviting me to misas,
Mm.
things of that nature. But Baba Bruce was one of those people that was also invited to misas as well. So we
Okay.
sat misas a lot together.
Mhm.
And his spirit guides told me at a misa,
Mm.
first time we probably sat, that you need to be doing this thing. And me and my, you know, non-understanding of my role in the world, because I still, this is pre-COVID.
Mhm.
This
Mhm.
is like 18 years ago.
Oh, okay. Mhm. Mhm.
And he's saying, you need to do this. And I'm like, do
Mhm.
what?
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about.
Got it.
Do what? What? Sit misas all the time? Okay, that's what I'm thinking. Sit misas all the time with our community. We're
Right.
over here, and I'm just
Mhm.
talking to us and us at this table. And he said it so sweetly. Now, these are his guides. These are
Right.
his
Right.
ancestors talking to me. He's
Wow.
he's channeling.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I go about my business, and I'm doing misas. Isn't that what they said? Oh, that's nice. Okay. My ancestors ain't telling me this.
Okay.
My guides and protectors aren't telling me I'm supposed to be some sort of
Mhm.
hungry medium channeler to the world. No one's telling me this. For my career, no one's telling me this.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I said another Misa, and his spirit guides and ancestors come again. You're supposed to be doing this. And so now I need clarity. I'm like, doing what?
Yeah.
Doing this, telling uh telling people, they're trying to describe it in their words,
Okay.
because they're, his guides. Who
Right.
knows what era of the
Right.
world,
Right.
of history, of time.
Interesting. Yeah.
We can go there. Alien life,
We could. Hmm.
future, time travelers from our future. I
So
don't know. You guys come up with your own theories. But he is now telling me, and it's not as nice as the first
okay.
time.
Okay.
And then I'm like, okay. And now I'm like in total disbelief. No way. I am not doing that. I am not going in public, and I am not going to be some kind of fortune teller sitting in a dark room with a crystal ball and
Right.
telling people their fortune.
Exactly.
I'm not doing it. I'm
Mhm.
ignoring them. I'm ignoring them. The last time wasn't a misa, it was like an Agun Bimbe, a drumming where Aguns come down. Aguns are our ancestors, and
Um,
you channel them, and you're drumming, you're partying. And his Agun came over and was like, we told you.
what?
And it wasn't loud.
This
That
is
was
the
the
third
moment.
time though.
This is the third time. And I was like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure this out. That was around 2017, 18. And that is when I became the hungry medium.
Hold up. Can we pause for the cause? If that was 2000. 18. I'm trying to think back. Was that during the last um Virgo Pisces? Maybe not.
No, the
Trying to
last
think of it.
Virgo Pisces was when I joined the tradition.
Okay, never mind. Okay. So
This
2017.
was right before my second Saturn return.
Okay. Okay, right before your set. Oh, which
Oh
makes
no, my Chiron return.
okay, right before your Chiron return.
In fact, right at my Chiron return, somewhere around 2017. I always forget, but yes,
Wow, powerful. Powerful. So at this time, this third time, you were like, okay, I got to do it.
I was scared.
Yeah. But you put yourself out there to call yourself the Hunger
A
Me.
hungry medium because I
Mm,
love food.
yes.
I was going to combine food at that time. I probably being vegan.
Mhm.
And so I was like, oh, it'll be cooking and spirituality and
Mhm.
and some of the first people that came to me for consultation were God sisters and
Mm,
God brothers.
mhm.
And they got readings in my home because I wasn't letting strangers in my home.
Right.
And just when I was looking for a space on Tompkins Avenue in Brooklyn,
Hey, shout out.
I was looking for a space to do this so people wouldn't come into my home. 2020 hit.
Wow. So you were able to do the Pluto and Aquarius thing.
So that's the funny part about the Pluto and Aquarius thing. And it was coming. It's coming. Oh, like
Right.
Jaws. Oh,
Right. Exactly.
it's coming. Uh, I didn't know I could do this through telephone.
Right. Nobody really did. Yeah.
In fact, I attended a conference put on by uh Ifitayo.
Mm.
No, that's not her name.
Okay, but the
I
conference.
can't remember her name. But she put on a conference at Yale where she
Mhm.
was a professor or she studied, and it was about the technology of spirit and whether you
Wow.
yes, the communication of readings, things of that nature,
Mm.
could be done over the whole conference was around technology and
Wow.
spirituality.
Whoa.
And yeah. So I'm sorry, I forget his name too. Flash of the Spirit.
Hmm.
He presented at this conference. I think I shared the video with you all,
Hmm.
but it's all about Afrofuturism and things of that nature. And then I'll tell you the incident that really made me realize I could do this.
Hmm.
I was on the phone with some friends. They were at a bar and it was two women and a guy.
Hmm.
And they had me on the telephone and because they were asking me, oh, because now I'm the hungry medium, right? And they're like, oh, Kateria, let me ask you a question. From the bar, they probably were drunk or something. And I was like, okay. And they said, so and so here is having an issue with blah, blah, blah. And I took a deep breath.
Mm.
And I said, tell so and so that blah, 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 blah. And they were like, oh my God, he looks like he's going to faint.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was like, oh, you can do this over there.
Mm.
So that is really how it got to that point. That is really the step by step. However, all of that being done still doesn't give you, this is the Chiron in Pisces
Yeah.
talking,
Yes.
it doesn't give you the full faith. And I'm not talking about in your abilities, because in order to have faith in your abilities, you have to have faith in God.
Yeah.
And people are often shocked that
Mm.
I struggle with that
Mhm.
because the wound, the way it looked to me growing up, the way it looked like it was manifesting was that God gives you something good. Let me use my left hand.
Mhm.
God gives you something good.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and what is the Christian whole thing? And then he takes it away when you're not a good girl,
Mhm.
or you are
Mhm.
evil, or you are whatever.
Mhm.
And that kind of indoctrination
Yeah.
has a huge impact on how successful you are as a human,
Mhm.
especially with my wound, saying that especially in the house of fun and
Yeah.
creative expression and all of those things. It's
Mhm.
like you can't have fun. Fun is limited.
Mhm.
Happiness is limited.
Mhm.
And my experiences as a child or a young adult losing both parents within 4 years of each other,
Mhm. Yeah.
that is very impactful. And it also reinforces the story if you come to it with that mindset.
Oh, taking a minute for that. It is. It is. And I'm just reflecting back at the timeline and the cycle that you were in because, and thank you so much for sharing that reflection because it's a good example of a six line in human design. In six lines, they say that you go through three phases in life. The first phase is the 0 to 30. You're kind of understanding and trying things out, failing, having successes. And then 30 to 60 is like, okay, I have a pattern. I'm tracking the pattern. I'm learning how to live with it. I'm learning how to move on from it. And then when you get to your Chiron return, is what they say is when you enter the roof, the top of the roof, and you are able to reflect on the past cycles. And because you've tried it all out, you know what to do, you're just able to be.
Yeah.
And you were in that cycle when you announced yourself as the hungry medium. You were in that human design. Human design has life cycle phases. You
Mm,
go through your Saturn cycle, your Uranus cycle, and your Chiron cycle.
mm,
And when you get to your Chiron cycle, it's around that 49 to 51 age. This
mm,
is when Chiron goes back to its natal placement and you're healing your deepest inner child wounds, your
mm,
life wounds, your karmic patterns. From integrating those lessons, you come through with like elderly wisdom and acceptance and grace for what you've been through. And it's like a gateway to your elder years of just living on the roof and constantly reflecting that out to the collective. And you, as a 6-2, a lot of the two line comes through, it's having that voice, being a channel, having that intuitive guidance, but it comes through the reflections that you have of being a role model in this life. And so, hearing that cycle back when you announce yourself as the hungry medium and being the Chironista in that transition
mm,
of even how God played in your story from those 0 to 30 years, from those 30 to 51 years. And seems like now in your Chiron return cycle that you're still in and still evolving every day, it's like now I can reflect on my journey, and you reflecting on that journey is
mm.
so impactful
Yeah.
to the flower childs, to the collective. We talk about that raindrop, that ripples out into the ocean. This is just part one, y'all. I know it was getting juicy, but make sure you tap in and tune in to part two, where we will be diving into working your chart and the power of reflection and going back and all of the goodness. So I'll catch y'all in the next episode. Make sure y'all stay tuned for part two. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Intuitive Wellness Experiment. May you continue to trust your rhythms, honor your intuition, and gather tools that liberate you. If you're feeling this journey, share it with someone you love or subscribe on Substack to stay connected. That's it for this episode. Keep listening to your body, keep trusting your path, and remember, your intuition is the revolution. Your wellness is sacred. Merci beaucoup and merci en pile. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time.